Hey, this is Brian and Zach. Thanks so much for watching Kies Motorsports. Today is a very anticipated day. We are going to be doing the pure Stage 2 turbo upgrade for the F30 N55 xDrive. So as you may know, the xDrive is a little bit more difficult than the rear wheel drive. So we're gonna show you the hard example, and if you have a rear wheel drive, it might just be a little bit easier. So for this video series, because of the length, we're going to break it up into 3 main parts. So today's video, we're gonna show you some basic prep, how to get your car ready. Video 2 is going to be how to remove your turbo, and video 3 is how to install the new one. So in today's video, you're going to see things like how to support the motor, you're going to see how to drain the oil, how to drain the coolant, how to remove your downpipe, how to remove part of your exhaust. We're going to put the car up on a lift, take the wheels off. I'm also going to remove the front bumper because I need to get the intercooler out. I have an Evolution Raceworks one in there to install our turbo to intercooler charge pipe, and I probably forgot something else too. So we're just going to get started. Let's put the car up in the air and get going. Now, throughout this process, you may find that we are skipping some steps. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. There's a plastic underbelly tray under the car. It's held in by 8mm screws. We may say something like, remove it. And we're not going to actually show you where each of the 24 screws are. So there's going to be things like that, but for the most part, we are going to cover everything in detail. All right, so let's get started. So we're gonna pop the hood here. We can remove our engine cover here. Now, throughout this process, there are some electrical connections that we'll be dealing with, so it's always safest to remove the negative terminal of your battery. So take a 10mm and you can do that now. Now what you can do is you can put the car in the air. So we're going to be using a quick jack today. You don't need a lift for this process, although it does make it easier. You could also do it with a jack and jack stands. If you don't know how to jack your car up with a manual jack and jack stand, we will have a link above that'll help you out. Let's start with some basics by removing the wheels. Now that that's done, we can remove the bumper. All right, if you haven't removed your bumper before, we're gonna go pretty quick, but remove this weather strip. And then what you're going to need is you're going to need a T30. There's about 6 screws across the front here. And then there's 2 T25. So at this time, you can remove those. At this time, what you can do is you can remove your license plate. Now, I have an external bracket that uses this tow hook area. Even if you have one that mounts to the front, sometimes the screws go in and there's very dense foam behind your bumper and it can prevent you from easily taking your bumper off. So to make your life easy, remove your license plate. Now what you want to do is go under your car and remove all of the 8mm screws and the plastic fastener. So you'll pretty much need a trim tool, you'll need an 8mm, and I like to have a pair of needle nose pliers just in case one gets stuck. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to remove these 8mm screws that are in the fender liner. So there's one here, one here, one here, and then there's 2 longer ones that sit up here. So at this time, you can remove them from both sides. Now, just to make sure we have room for cameras and whatnot, I am going to remove this fender liner. It's just held in by a bunch of 8mm screws. So again, this is one of those steps that we're gonna skip. Just look around and you'll see the different screws and just remove them all if this is something you'd like to remove. So then we'll do the same thing on the other side here. Now, if your car has fog lights, don't forget to remove them. If it has washers, don't forget to remove that line. I don't have either of those, but I do have PDC. So we need to disconnect this connection right there. Let that hang. Then what you can do is just pop this out away from the car. Do the same thing on the other side. Release the front from these metal tabs, and then your bumper will be free. Okay, so just pre-plan where you want to have it set. I have a little stand, we're gonna put that on for now. The next thing that you need to do is you need to remove your intake. Now, I have an MST intake, so if you have a regular intake, we could put a video in the description that'll help you figure out how to remove that. But this one, you just remove the vacuum line, remove your mass airflow sensor. There's a T40 over here. Then what you can do is take a flathead screwdriver, remove this clamp over here. Then with the MST intake, you need to remove the screws to the heat shield. Then we can remove the top of the cover here. And with the MST, there's a 10mm down here. Once that is removed, the rest of the heat shield and the rest of the intake can be removed. Now what we can do is we can lower the intercooler. So these are essentially held in by 2 T25 screws. There's one about here, one about here. And then you have your turbo to intercooler charge pipe and then your intercooler to throttle body charge pipe. And there's 2 C-clips. So to do this, you're going to need a T25 and also a pick tool. If you have an Evolution Raceworks intercooler in, you also need to remove the top supports, which we've already done. So whenever you're working on your car, always a really good idea to have some kind of face protection. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but what we did is we already went ahead and we removed the underbody plastic. So it's held in by about 25 or so of those little 8mm screws. So one of those self-explanatory things, once you get under the car, you're gonna see exactly where they are. So just get that piece out of the way. So now what we're going to do is we are going to remove this little C-clamp here that's holding the turbo to intercooler charge pipe on. So to do this, there's going to be this little black piece of plastic. It's kind of a pain. What you need to do is just reach your hands around the back and force it down. Once it's off, I never put it back on. And if you have an aftermarket pipe, there's no place to even put it. Then what you can do is just make sure that you have your pipe lined up. You could take a pick tool in here and you can very carefully just remove this C-clamp just like that. Then what we're going to do is do the exact same thing on the other side. Now sometimes this is a little bit easier to remove if you release the throttle body section, but sometimes you can get it off without it. Comes off just like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to remove these two T25s. So there's one right here, there's one over here, and this doesn't matter if you're removing an aftermarket intercooler or if you're removing the factory one. Then what you can do is release each of the charge pipes. And then once you've done that, you can gently lower your intercooler down. Now what we're going to do is we are going to remove the reinforcement plate. So this is held in with 13mm bolts. So I have my little stubby Eastwood impact wrench here. So you can remove all of these and then lower this. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to remove the downpipe. We're gonna see if we can get away with leaving the rest of the exhaust on. We may be able to, we might have to take it off, but we're just gonna start with the downpipe. So if you haven't seen our video on how to do a downpipe, we're gonna list it above and also in the description. So with the downpipe, there are two O2 sensors that you're going to need to remove, and they are located right back here. So what you could do is, I like to do this with a pick tool. Just press down this tab, loosen it up, and you can slowly just start to pull these off. Okay, so there's one. Okay, there we go. Now what you're going to notice is these are held into a bunch of these little metal tabs, kind of hard to show, so I'm just gonna release them as I go. And then what we'll do is we'll just pull these wires down towards the bottom of the car. So one thing that I didn't mention is before you get started, it's a really good idea to spray PB Blaster on all of these nuts and bolts that we're going to be removing. It's going to make the process a lot easier. The other thing is I recommend using hand tools, or if you are going to use air tools, use something like this that's just very low power, because otherwise if you try to use like an impact gun on things like this, you're just going to tear it apart and it's going to make it a nightmare. So just a little word to the wise there for those of you with air tools that get excited. So now what we can do is take an E-Torx bit, which is a female Torx, and this is an E10. So remove these two little guys right here. And we'll just set those down, and that support is loosened. So now what you can do, reach your arm up, finish pulling those O2 sensor wires down. Now what you can do is you can remove this support brace right here. So there's an E14 here and an E14 up there. So this will give you a sense of how large these bolts actually are, so pretty big. All right, there we go, number 2. Now what we're going to do is we are going to remove the lower V-band clamp. So this is a 16mm. Again, I recommend using hand tools, not power tools for this. And it looks like this one doesn't really want to come. So you might want to have a spare clamp on hand. As I'm doing this, it's actually bending the clamp, so I'm just gonna rip it off with a power tool, and then we'll just put a new one on, so no big deal. All right, so disregard what I said about no power tools. So like I said, we're just gonna rip this off and then we'll just put a new clamp on. That sucker's seized, man. All right, plan B. So like I said, use hand tools and you'll be trouble-free. Now we have a 13mm on that V-band clamp up there. I just have this little tool that we made. Just broke the bolt loose there. All right, so once you get that bolt loosened, just keep threading it out until you feel it release. Okay, we can pull that out, set it to the side. So this looks great. So we're gonna be able to reuse that clamp, which is good. And the way that this clamp works is it's two parts and there's a little metal tab at the top. So we're going to rock it open. Again, make sure that you just keep in mind there's nothing holding your downpipe in. And then at this point, I can move my exhaust out of the way and pull my downpipe down. Then what you can do is just reach up, grab your V-band clamp and just take it off. Set that in a safe spot. So now what we're going to do is we are going to drain some fluid. So specifically, we're going to drain our oil and then we're going to drain our coolant. Now to make oil draining easy, take your oil cap and just loosen it. I like to just put it on like there so no gunk gets in, but plenty of air can get in and it won't create a vacuum and make it a lot easier to drain. So let's head under the car, drain the oil, and then we'll work on the coolant. Now what you can do is take a 17mm, remove your drain plug here. We're gonna let all of the oil drain out. Now it's typically best to drain your oil when your motor is warm because we're dealing with the turbo. I don't want to get burned, so we are dealing with cold oil, but it should still all flow out nice. Then while your oil's draining, you can sit back and have a snack. Welcome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our man oil filter, and in here there's a little plastic baggie, and we need the oil plug gasket. So it looks just like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the oil plug before we forget about it, and then we're going to torque it down with our new torque wrench we're really excited about to 25 Newton meters, which is about 18.439-ish foot-pound. So at this time, let's take care of that. So what you want to do is drop off your old gasket, put the new one on, and then just carefully thread this on. You want to make sure you don't cross-thread it. And again, always do this with hand tools. Never use power tools. So now what we're going to do is we are going to tighten this down to about 25 Newton meters. Now we have an electronic torque wrench from Eastwood. This thing is awesome because what's going to happen is we set it to 25 Newton meters and then it's going to light up and give us a beep when we have hit the correct torque. All right, that's good right there. Now while we're at it, we're going to remove our oil filter and just replace it with the new one. We're obviously not going to put any new oil in, but this way we're just prepared to do so when the timing is right. So just shake off the excess oil, and then I like to have some kind of bag ready. Just pull it off. There you have it. Now also in your man oil filter package here, you have a very small O-ring, and then we have a larger one. So we're just going to replace the ones that are on here. So the small O-ring is right up here, so just take a pick tool. Doesn't really matter if you damage it, because we are going to throw it away. Put it in our bag right there. Then take your new one, just pop it on. Then if you look right here, this is where the larger O-ring is, so take this off. Put it in our trusty bag over here. And we'll take this, make sure that everything sits nice in the groove. Then take your new oil filter, just press it on, just like that, and just thread it in here. Then torque it down to 25 Newton meters. So now what we're going to do is we are going to drain the coolant from the water pump. So there's two hoses we need to disconnect. There's one electrical connection, and then there's two E14 bolts. So let's take a look at where it's at. So as you can see, this is our water pump right here. So there's an electrical connection right there. And if I rotate the fan down, you can see there's an E14 and then another E14. So we're going to start by removing the electrical connection. We're going to remove the bolts, and then there's two hoses. We're going to disconnect the hoses and drain all of the coolant. So to get easier access, because looking at it like this, it's kind of hard to see what's going on, we're going to remove this coolant line and then we're gonna loosen the line behind it, just gonna give us a little more space to work. We're gonna leave the fan in place. I don't really wanna take that out. So let's try to just remove this line, we'll remove this line, and then we'll get working on it. So to remove this, there are these little hooks. So it hooks on the bottom. You just unlatch it, and the whole thing is gonna push out. We'll just set that to the side. Same exact thing on here. So you just rock it down, just like that, and then you can hook it. Now the one behind it, the way that this one works is you just need a trim tool, and you pull out that middle pin. Pull that out. Just set that out of the way. And then what's going to happen is we can kind of move these around, and we get a lot more access to everything we need to be seeing. So just press this button in right here, and then just pull this off. Boom. All right, so then just feed your E14 with a couple extensions in here, and then you can just slowly start to loosen these. There's one bolt I forgot about. It's on the top. It's impossible to see, so there's no way we can show it. But just trust me, reach around. The same E14, and it's just 100% feel, so just feel around for it. I just have a regular ratchet that we fed up there. No extensions or anything on it. And this is one that you just have to work a little bit by a little bit by a little bit. So, all right, so this is the tool that I'm going to take over with now. Now that the bolt is loose, it's loose, but it's not enough by hand, but this larger diameter is just gonna help me spin it. All right, bolt number 3. All right, with that, the water pump is completely loose of the 3 screws, and we also disconnected the electrical connection. So let's drain the coolant and keep going. Now the next part of the process is to go over to the water pump, release the hoses, the upper and also the lower, and the coolant is gonna gush out and it's gonna go everywhere. We're gonna try to avoid it from going everywhere by going to our auxiliary radiator. There's a little clip on here. I'm just going to release this clip, and then what we're going to do is I am going to disconnect this. We're gonna just drain some of the coolant out. Now, typically your water pump is the lowest point in the system, so it's the best drain there, but if we can prevent getting hit in the face with an extra gallon of coolant, I am game. So we have that loose. I'm just gonna let this drain right here, just like that. So we actually let this drain a little bit longer than we were originally anticipating. And I don't know if you can hear it, but there's an ocean in here. So we're actually just going to reconnect this, and we're going to skip removing the hoses from the water pump, because I think we got enough in here where if a little bit dribbles out when we're doing the turbo, it's not really a big deal. We still have the overflow tank that we need to remove, so there's a little bit in there. But we're just going to proceed without removing the water pump hoses, because especially with the xDrive, it's just a pain, and I don't think it's completely necessary, so we're just gonna pass by that step. Now what we're going to do is we are going to remove the coolant expansion reservoir. So to do this, there's an 8mm screw back here, there's a clamp down here, and then underneath, there's one connection that needs to be disconnected and one more hose. So let's start at the top. So we're going to remove this 8mm screw right here. Okay. Just set that to the side. Then you'll need a pick tool. BMW uses the same C-clamps on charge pipes and pretty much all of these connections. So I'm just gonna set this out of the way on this towel just in case anything is to leak out. We'll disconnect this plug right here. Just let this hang down here. And then we'll remove this C-clamp. You may want to have a towel ready, because it's very possible that a little fluid is going to leak out here. Okay, so we'll move that just like that. Then you can remove the entire reservoir, and I'm just going to set it over here where our other coolant drain, just so this can continue to drain and it's in a nice, safe, clean environment. Now the last part of the process is we need to remove one motor mount. We're going to remove the passenger side, and we need to support the motor to properly do that, and also to make sure that we're safe. Now if you look on the motor, you will see that there are threads in the motor. Now what you need to do is you need to get a special tool from BMW to actually thread into this hole. It has a loop on it. You loop a chain through and then you tie it to the motor support. Now the cool thing is, it's just a tow hook. The bad news is if you have an F30, it's not the right size. Now the tow hook that you actually need is from an E46, which is kind of funny. So what you need to do is get one of these. If you don't have one, we're gonna have all the parts listed in the description below. And you just put it right here and just thread it into your motor. Now what you need to do is you need to get a top mount motor support. Now you can use an engine hoist. The problem is the legs kind of get in the way. So this we kind of found was the best way to do it. So what we did, so that nothing slides around, is we put some clamps here. So we're gonna put this in place. Just do some small adjustments. Okay. We'll take the chain, loop it on there, and we'll just do that a couple times. Now at this point we are ready to remove the motor mount. So what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to show you how to remove this nut right here. This is a 16 millimeter. Now since the downpipe is out of the way, you're gonna have a lot better access to this area from below. So at this time, remove this nut. Once again, this is Zach and Brian. Thanks for watching Kies Motorsports. So this really wraps up the prep video where we're just getting everything ready for the install. In our next video, you're gonna see how to remove the factory turbocharger. And in video 3, we're gonna show you how to install the Pure Stage 2. Now, if you're interested in a Pure Stage 2 or a Stage 1 upgrade for your BMW, be sure to check us out at kiesmotorsports.com. Again, this is Brian. Be sure to give us a like, make sure to subscribe. Check us out at kiesmotorsports.com. Thanks for watching and have a great day.